If you've ever taken a road trip or if you've ever been in a relationship, that's most likely why you clicked on this video. And you may not agree with me that relationships are like road trips. I'm not saying that relationships are road trips. I'm saying that they are akin or similar to road trips. Relationships are akin or similar to road trips. That being said, if you understand what it's like to be on a road trip, you understand that you're sharing a space with somebody else. And you have to deal with the conditions of the road. The road may have a detour. It may have some type of construction on it. It may entirely be closed and you have to go backwards and use a different road. This is so form-fitting to what relationships are like, or it's a great analogy for what relationships can be like, and it helps you to understand what your relationship can be like, because when you look at it as that, you can then understand the big picture. I'll start this off with a story that a friend told me. She said she was invited to a wedding. I know that I've told this story before on this channel. She was invited to a wedding, and she was a mentor for this young woman, and went to the wedding. The wedding was great, and her husband were leaving, and the mentor and her husband were leaving. And she wanted to just stop the bride and say, "Hey, congratulations." She stopped the bride and said, "Hey, congratulations. We're on our way out." And she said, "Thanks so much. We're just glad that we made it." And the mentor, who was older and elder, said, "Okay." And then she walked out. And the reason she had the reaction she did was because she understood in her marriage, as it was told to me, that it is a marathon. There is so much that comes with being in a long-term relationship, let alone a marriage. And the sentiment she got from her mentee that was like, "I'm just so glad we made it," for her was something that was a little bit laughable. And it wasn't, like to the point that she was like, "Oh girl, you're out of your mind." It was to the point that it was almost like, "Oh, cute." And many times we look at limerence, which is this honeymooning phase in the beginning of relationships where we're like, "Oh my goodness, this is it. You love me. You really love me." I love it because it's when Homegirl won the Oscar, and it was a wrap for her. She was like, she went off, and it was such a beautiful moment. And I think that in the beginnings of relationships, they're very beautiful moments, but for people that have been in long-term relationships or in marriages, sometimes there can be a little bit of jadedness or look back and be like, bah, humbug. And I think that dissonance or disparity between the two is what we're talking about with the road trip. And it's not to say that being, jaded about it is a bad thing, or having limerence and feeling really, happy or euphoric about it is a bad thing. It's just to say that it's a thing, and these are parts of the elements of being in relationships. When you're in a relationship, three things to understand how it is akin to a road trip. Number one, you have to understand that what you do in the car will undoubtedly impact the other person in the car or people in the car. I know this because I toured in a short bus for about 7 to 6 years, 6 to 8 years, I think. And whatever you did in that bus, it was going to impact somebody else. If you ate something, if you drank something, if you said something into the air, if you didn't say something into the air, it was going to affect somebody else. If you fell asleep, if you didn't fall asleep, we were all moving as there's no non-duality here. Everything is affecting the other person in one way or another. And it's just the way it is. If you had to use the restroom, well, now we all have to stop. If you didn't have to use the restroom and somebody else did, well, you still got to stop. If we need gas, well, we all got to stop. We can't just move without gas. Tour bus don't float on water, baby. And so everything that you do in a relationship will undoubtedly affect the other person. And it's one way to say that you're on your own time. The thing is that when you're in a relationship, you're on each other's time, in a way. And you have to take that into account while you're in the relationship. Me, definitely somebody who would think that, I guess I'm still on my time, I'll do what I want. And it was like, okay, you can do what you want, but it's gonna impact the quality of this relationship. If you continue to do what you want, when you want, how you want, and you're in a relationship, undoubtedly impacts that relationship. There will be compromise, there will be collaboration, there will be all types of cooperation. That's what a relationship is. You're in tandem with somebody else. It's not saying you're the same person, but it's saying that you're occupying the same space so closely within proximity that it will affect one another, whether physical, mentally, or spiritually. That is another thing people don't understand. They think it's all because you're filling a physical space. Absolutely not. You're sharing time, spirit, and energy with this person. 3 things that you can never get back. These are currencies that are very finite, very limited. So in spending these with these people, what you're doing is you're building a life with this person, whether you like it or not. It's simply happening. But whatever you do in the space, whether it be mental, physical, or spiritual, will undoubtedly affect the other person. The second thing is you're both building in a mutual direction. The car is going in a direction. That's just a fact. It's not moving. It could not be moving, and then you're both not moving forward. And if you decide to leave the car, well, then you're kind of leaving the relationship. But the idea is that you're both in a mutual direction, and it's neither time nor space that is going to dictate what if your relationship is successful or not. You're going to say that, hey, we're on this road together. We're gonna make it. We're moving together, as we would say in high school. We going together. You are going together in the same direction on a road trip, and that's just what's happening with this relationship. And when you start to make plans outside of that mutual direction, that is the moment that relationship probably has met its conclusion. I've never forgotten this scene in Caroline in the City, sitcom in the 90s, I believe. My mom and my sister and I, we'd watch sitcoms all the time. Caroline is dating this guy, and he's been on the show for a minute. I think he lasted over a season. And all of a sudden, he says, well, yeah, there's a trip planned, in about 3 months. I think it was 3 months. It was definitely 3 months. And Caroline's like, oh, well, I can't wait to go on it with you. And he's like, oh, well, let's just not book the flights just yet. Who knows if we'll be together by then? And then the studio audience goes, oh. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I definitely harkened back to it because that was the end of Caroline and this man's relationship. It's not because he made plans without her, it's because he essentially he didn't plan on them possibly being together. The possibility of them being together, out the window. And that was enough of a lack of confidence that Caroline was like, all right, I'm out. That was it. She was done. And who could blame her? Because you're planning on being in this car, going to the destination, wherever that destination may be for the two of you. But whatever that means, you have a destination in mind. And if you're planning on not being in the same car as somebody before that destination, well, you might as well start planning different road trips. So that is another part of it as well. Any evidence of departure will lead to departure. And the third thing is you both choose what is in the car. You get to choose what's in the car. You get to choose what's in y'all's life. That may be children, that may not be children, that may be pets, that may not be pets. It really could be anything. It could be plants in the house. It might not be plants. Whatever it is, I understand that a lot of couples, the way they shop for groceries, them eating or cooking together, that is a big deal. Whatever you want to choose to be in the car is what's going to be in the car. And that is part of the beauty of the autonomy of a relationship. It's y'all get to choose what's in it. You get to choose what goes into the relationship and build from it. You get to choose what tires you want to put on the car. You get to choose what car you want, depending on how much money you have. But you get to choose on what that journey looks like, depending on what y'all want. And again, this concept can and will be lost on people because a lot of folks are still in their own car. And that's okay. It's just probably not going to work out. I don't know why I'm laughing, because this concept for a lot of people, especially for me, goodness, 20 years ago, it was lost on me because the idea of a relationship was, cool, we hanging out. And by hanging out, I literally mean like, oh, we're just spending time with each other. Like we'll go to, in college, like you go to a party or you sit and work together at a coffee shop. Like the stakes were so not really anywhere sometimes. And for some people, you see it now and they think, well, I thought that I was gonna be the driver the whole time. Sometimes y'all gotta switch up. Somebody's gonna fall asleep, somebody's gonna take the wheel. And whatever else you can add, this is the thing I'm curious about as long as this video has been, whatever else you can add to the analogy of a relationship being a road trip, what else can you add to it? Because this is the way somebody said this and I was like, this couldn't be more correct. And I just wanted to make a video about it because it has all the makings and the elements and the construction of a road trip that a relationship entails and entertains. And coming back to this last part, you all choose what is in the car. I think that is it's just so true because there's not a whole lot of ducking, jiving, and hiding you can do while in a relationship. You can play yourself in a relationship. You can hide, duck, and jive if you'd like, but being in proximity to that person, you can't hide, duck, and jive yourself. In City Slickers, I remember Billy Crystal was sitting with his friends, and his friend said, man, Billy, what if, nobody in the world knew, and you could be with any other woman in the world outside your wife? What would you choose? And Billy Crystal said, I wouldn't choose to do it. And the guy said, but nobody would know. And Billy says, yeah, but I would know. And that part to me is so true because any inauthenticity within a relationship, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. We talked about the cost of inauthenticity in a past video, and we will definitely get into a conversation about that again. However, the point being is that whatever you bring into the car, like whatever inauthenticity, whatever baggage, whatever childhood trauma you have, you bring it into the car with you. It's in the car with you and you have to deal with it to go forward. Sometimes, Dan Savage talked about this, the price of admission. He said, if you tell your man, yo, baby, stop chewing your food with your mouth open, and they say, oh, my bad, honey. Then the next day, they're chewing food with their mouth open, you say, honey, I need you to effing stop chewing food with your effing mouth open. And they say, oh, my bad, honey. And then the next day, they're doing it again. That's called the price of admission. And now you are simply having to make the choice. Will I be with this person who chews with their mouth open, or will I bid them adieu? Because it ain't gonna change. And I think that's so important. Now, the story that I'll get to in this is Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And all the time he was trying to discern who he was going to be in his relationship with, oh goodness, how am I forgetting her name? Gwen Stacy, and then there was the other one, Mary, oh goodness, I lost it. But either way, whenever he got into a relationship, even when he was in school, he was trying to discern between being Spider-Man and Peter Parker. It didn't matter because he was bringing it into any relationship. Therefore, the relationship fails and the life wins out. Because he was trying to do two things at once, trying to be this superhero and then also be this person that wasn't a superhero at the same time, he couldn't have it both. Life always won. It always beat it. It always won. And you can't really defy it when you're in a relationship. Now, this is obviously a cosmic comic book / sci-fi fantasy tale involving a young man who gets bit by a spider and then gets powers therefore from it. But that being said, the point is that he had to choose who he wanted to be in certain relationships and then who he was going to be outside of it. And undoubtedly, they all collide at some point. They always do. You can't really split it up. So understand, again, the analogy of a relationship is a road trip is a relationship is something where what you do in the car will undoubtedly affect the other person, and vice versa. You're both building in a mutual direction, and whatever you bring into the car is what you bring into the car, and you can choose whatever you want to bring into the car. And that's all I have for the analogy of a relationship is a road trip. And if there's any other parts of it that you want to put together in the comments below, please do so. I think the Peter Parker thing kind of hit. I'm not sure. I'll reflect on that one. That one will come back. But I think that one still hits. I have written down Spider-Man, Peter Parker is always trying to discern his life from his relationship. Therefore, the relationship fails and the life wins out. Actually, that makes more sense, because if you begin to understand what your life is and you've defined your life and you're intentional about your life, then you understand that whatever relationships you're in, your life is going to be part of that relationship as well. Best of luck with all of this. We will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you later.